Welcome to Wednesday Night Live from the basement. Here's your hosts, Rob, Daryl, and Tim.
Good evening, everybody. It is Rob. It is Daryl. Tim is busy this evening, and our special guest, our friend of the channel, Richard from Richard's Vinyl Tap House. How you doing, gentlemen?
Oh,
Good.
Good. It is it's Wednesday, so we're live from the basement. Tim is not at a concert this evening, but at a public speaking engagement. We'll just leave it at that. So he may tune in later on, but yeah. So there's just the three of us tonight, and we're gonna chat about the 80s in some fashion in a little bit, but we're just talking the weather before. Daryl's still freezing his ass off, and Richard's sweating his ass off, and I'm in between the two asses, I guess.
Yeah.
Did you ever get around? Oh, here's Trevor. How you doing, Trevor? Did you ever get around? Maybe I missed it. Did you ever get around to doing your river crossing video, Daryl?
I have so what I did was I drove across one way and I drove back the other way. There's two ways to get in and off the island.
Right.
I don't know. I had thought about incorporating it into a video. I don't know how I would do it. I might just send it to you.
Send it. I'd love to see it, man. That's
yeah.
How long does it take to cross the river?
Because I was just out this past weekend for a hockey tournament. Chris Mann had suggested to me to do like a video log of what life up here would be like. But my boys were just acting like rats on the train.
Like boys do.
Would have been an interesting one though, because the weather was really slushy and gross at the hockey tournament. And I don't want to go into too much details about it. Rob is well aware of what truck drivers in Ontario have become.
Mm-hmm.
And the further north they go, the less experience in cold, snowy weather they have. And let's just say that I was a little hesitant on wanting to drive on the highway this past weekend, because the Highway 1117 corridor from North Bay to Thunder Bay has been nothing but a death trap all winter long. But it was a good hockey tournament. My son's team did not make the second round. It is what it is, but he had fun.
That's the important thing. How you doing, Chris? Welcome, my friend. Yeah, I was thinking about you on the weekend when you were at the hockey tournament, and I thought, what's Daryl's life like? You can either get on a train to leave the town, or you got to drive across the river to the other town, or you got to drive on an ice road. I thought that would be interesting to see. So yeah.
I didn't take the ice road south this year. I've got 550 million reasons why I don't want to take it anymore.
Sure.
But it would be kind of cool to do the video of it. It's 170 kilometers long, and that's just to get from the island to the end of that road that crosses the Muskeg. Then there's a 50-kilometer stretch. It's like a old hydro road, and then there's 75-kilometer highway just to get to the Trans-Canada.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's nice. Like if I were to take videos of it and stuff like that, you guys would be like, this. It's really nice, but it's not for everyone.
I used to watch years ago that show Ice Road Truckers, where they drove the Dalton Highway up to the diamond mine. Is it kind of like that? Is that sort of what it's like?
You could say that, but it's so it's over frozen swamp is what it is. So it's over land technically, but there's two big river crossings that you have to go across, and they have to flood it so that it reaches the thickness that you can cross. But before you go onto these river crossings, you kind of, I don't know how to explain it. You're up on this almost like a hill, and it becomes a 1-lane narrow road to go down to the river crossing. So you almost have to hope that nobody's coming up the other side.
Yeah. Oy.
Does it make you nervous as you're inching onto the ice? Because I'd shit myself, I think.
Yeah, transport trucks cannot take the one further south. The one that I go across to get to the island, I saw a transport carrying pipe across that river this morning. Yeah.
So Chris went to bed and he can't sleep, so now he's watching us. Well, that is a good way to put yourself to sleep. I hope we can help you with that. I hope you'll be asleep in 10 minutes. I'm getting a little, for those watching, Chris, Trevor, I'm getting a little bit of echoey feedback. I don't know if it's just on my end, but let me know if the audio sounds like shit or not. Because it could very well be a technical glitch on this end. So if you're hearing it, let us know in the comments and I'll do my best to try and fix it. So we got any music news to talk about? I don't know, do we?
Not really.
I don't. Honestly.
I do have some music news to talk about. Chris
right.
Mann in the comments sent me something in the mail, and it has reached Timmins. He spent the extra big bucks. It got here much faster than the last time. So I am hoping that by Friday it'll have reached my house.
Daryl, I promise you, here's your VCLT. I just have not made it to the post office. And I know it's been packed, ready to go for like a week and a half. And I know I suck, but I'm getting there.
I have yours right here. I'm just waiting for yours to get here so I can reuse the cardboard and send it back to you.
All right. Fair enough. Chris is saying that there's a lot of feedback when you and I talk, but not when Richard talks. So that's weird. What I'm going to do, if you guys could talk amongst yourselves for about 60 seconds, I'm going to leave the studio. I'm going to reboot my laptop really, really quickly because sometimes because my laptop plugs into a docking station. Sometimes it doesn't recognize the audio driver properly. So you guys good to talk for a minute while I go out and come back in?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Okay. I will be right back. Be right back.
Wait, what shit can we say about him now?
Yeah.
Not Rob. God, what a douche.
So funny. This is not music related, but my high school, there was a group of students that went to Iceland over the March break there last week. And there was a girl that's in one of my classes, and she was super excited. She saw this apron for me, and she bought it because I teach cooking class.
Yeah.
She bought this apron in Iceland, and it's got like all the different different cultural things from Iceland on it. It's pretty neat, like the different like the volcano, 2 different waterfalls. I'm not allowed to call it a pony. I was told I'm not allowed to call it a pony. They got the miniature horses, and just some other things. It's really cool. These kids were telling me how freaking expensive it is over there, though. Like the Corona is so expensive.
Yeah, I've heard everything is expensive in Iceland. Like, you want to stay at a hotel and it's stupid money. Or I can imagine gasoline is the same, but who knows?
Well, gasoline over here just went up big time in Ontario.
Uh-oh.
It's I heard that on the island up here, it's not the same further south, but up where I am, you're looking at $2.19 a liter. Yeah, when Rob hears that price, he's gonna shit bricks, even though he's never paid gas in his life.
I do not.
Price of gas apparently in Moose Factory right now because of all the they've had to raise the price.
Bullshit.
$2.19 a liter, Rob.
Good Lord.
That's outrageous.
Good Lord.
And people are whining here
It
because
was
it's $4.
It was $1.68 in Cochrane.
Okay. There's no echo now, but my video is really slow. So I'll be right back. Keep talking, guys. We'll get this sorted out here.
Poor Rob's getting all techie on us. So no,
This is why I've
I
never
have,
done my own StreamYard.
yeah, well, and one of the reasons I've kind of not done live streams in ages, it's so glitchy, it's terrible. I have one potential concert I might go to April 2nd. Gary Newman's coming here. And I'm like, we'll see.
When you
I've
just
seen
mentioned Gary Newman, I figured due to today's topic that you might just go through your whole collection of Gary Newman.
Well, if we're focused only on 80s, I will bring up, Master Newman himself at some point, I'm sure. But yeah, I've seen Gary Newman so many times. I'm just like, do I really need to see him? Because he hasn't done a new album in like 4 years. And he's doing not essentially the same tour, but a comparable one. I'm like, do I want to shell out another $60 to go? We'll see. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Of course you do.
Of course, I probably should. And Public Image Limited is coming here next February, and I can get tickets for that for like about 50, which isn't too terrible. So we'll see.
That's like asking me, Rob, would you like to go to another Blue Rodeo show? I've been to 54 of them, and my answer is always going to be yes. I will go again. So there we go. Hey, that sounds.
Though.
Do I sound good now? Sound better? Good.
Same as it was.
All right.
Chris will probably weigh in. We'll see.
Chris will tell me. Yeah. So technology, it is what it is sometimes. So my apologies for the technical glitches. Is what it is. Hopefully we got it worked out. Trevor saying gas went to $5 a gallon here.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's and to the comment earlier, I don't pay for gas. I know it sounds terrible. I drive a company car, and so it's my gas gets expensed, like the company pays for it. I can use my company vehicle for personal, but I don't go anywhere. So do I care what the price of gas is? I do not.
Not really.
Not really.
Yeah.
I drive a hell of a lot, but
that helps.
So I'm thankful for that. So we're chatting 80s tonight, and sort of the framework, the thought, I guess, was not just 80s, but sort of 80s music that sort of informed or helped form our musical taste, or was significant in our musical journey, or was somehow impactful to the music fans that we are today, I guess is probably the best way to put it. So however you want to interpret that, interpret away. I am of the age that, I'm a kid of the 80s, but I wasn't listening to music in the 80s. I listened to music in the 90s, so I discovered 80s music a few years later, as Daryl probably did too, because Daryl and I are about the same age. But for me, I'm going to go through some 80s music kind of in the order that I discovered it, obviously after the 80s, but it's stuff that sort of is sort of funnels me down the path that I'm on, I guess is how I would describe it. So however you guys want to do it, knock yourself out. Richard is our guest, so he gets the honor of going first, unless he's really opposed to going first.
Oh no, I'm fine with that.
All right, my friend.
So more than anything, when I was in the 80s, I was everything from my late teens to my mid 20s. So I was, I had been picking up records and listening to music for ages throughout, the mid 70s into the 80s. So I thought I would start an album that of a group that my sister got me into in the 70s that I just kind of kept the ball rolling. So in the 70s, I was listening to her records and then started picking up some by this band. But this was the first one that I bought that she didn't buy because she was kind of out of that scene in the 80s. And it's Queen the Game, the very shiny, shiny, shiny version. Love this album, love the singles off of this. This is a sort of, that sort of 50s look, gang inspired looking Queen. Really cool image. I love this album. I still do. Play the Game, Dragon Attack. Another one, Bites the Death. There are a couple of songs on here I'd be like, if I never heard them again, that would be fine. But still, Prime Jive. I was thinking about that one today, and I was like, God, I love that song. Don't Try Suicide. Sail Away, Sweet Sister. This is just like a banger, if you will. And throughout the 80s, I kept it going. So bought this, started backtracking through their catalog and buying some of their older ones that I didn't pick up that my sister had. And my favorite Queen album still is News of the World, the one out before this one, but that came out in 78 or something. But yeah, so started out the 1980s with, Queen, and what a heck of an album this was. But yeah, did it inform my music? But no, it was a kind of a continuation of groups that I had been exposed to in the 70s that I kept that going into the 80s. So that being to say it helped my being a collector certainly did. And that's one of many bands that I became a collector of.
Good one. Good one.
Queen is an amazing band. There's no denying how good Queen is. I mean, I suppose I understand why some people might not like them, but it's kind of like we've talked about like Elton John. Like I don't know many people that are like, no, I can't stand him. Like Queen's just one of those bands that everybody knows. They have a great history. Freddie Mercury was an amazing individual.
The greatest frontman ever.
From my understanding, on a personal and band level. So, yeah.
My first Queen experience was We Are the Champions when I was 10. Hooked back then. Yeah. I don't know what my first Queen experience was. It just, to me, I think it just, I don't want to say omnipresent, but I don't ever remember the first time I heard Queen and went, holy crap. I just remember always liking Queen. So I don't know.
For me, it was Night at the Opera. My sister had the Night at the Opera album, and we would listen to it together. And I was just fascinated with how different it is throughout it. And of course, you got Bohemian Rhapsody, but then Good Company. It's sort of like 30s inspired boogie song. It's like, it was fascinating. I was like, wow, what is this group doing? What else do they have?
I was actually introduced to Queen on CD. My dad had the greatest hits, the black cover there, and used to just play it all the time. Bicycle Race, I always thought was hilarious as a kid because we would literally try, if we were playing it on a, I don't know, ghetto blaster or whatever outside, we would try to do the bicycle race together down the street, try to beat each other out. Cool song.
Ryan makes a good point. I mean, Queen's got some sort of mass appeal. There's something in Queen that I would appeal to probably just about everybody. Right? So, yeah. Agreed. Scott, welcome. How you doing, man? Good to have you here. I didn't pull any ABBA tonight, but I thought about it because they had a couple albums in the 80s.
I could have too.
They're better. I mean, I have all of them except the first two. Their better albums are like late 70s, in my opinion. But I didn't pull any ABBA tonight.
It won't be. I don't think I'll be talking about them. Maybe Rob will though.
Douglas saying my first Queen album I discovered was Queen 2 as an import and love it when it came out in the 70s. I don't have enough Queen, surprisingly. You see it a lot. I just don't have enough of it. I got to get more. All right, Daryl, what's your first pick of the 80s?
Okay. Well, I'm actually going to start this off with a comp because I'll just talk about the band as a whole, but a very specific period of time, which would be their 80s period. So am I okay with this band in the late 60s and through the 70s when they were more of a brass band or jazz, not jazz band, but brass kind of band? Yes. But I've talked about this before. My mom and dad used to listen to Chicago all the time, but the 80s variant, right, with Peter Cetera. And so that's what I'm going with. I think for me, yes, I like, I'm kind of like you, Rob. You mentioned this off the top. Like, we're late 70s kids. So my experience of listening to 80s music was on the radio, in the car, driving down the road, on vacation. We used to go on vacation lots. And so this is, I guess, a lot of what I'm going to show today is what I would have heard with stories of remembering some of this stuff when I was a kid, going on vacation and my parents playing it. And Chicago is probably the biggest one. My mom and dad both like Chicago. I'm just going to show the greatest hits because it's the my parents had this CD. I think it's from 1990 or something like that. And it's what I remember. And for me, every song that's on here always seemed like a banger. And yes, it's that cheesy, sappy Peter Cetera, Look Away, Will You Still Love Me, You're the Inspiration. They're all wimpy high school dance kind of songs. But I'm not going to say that this influenced me to like Primus or Tool or any of those things, but I guess it's the starting point of what I remember going into high school. This is what my parents were listening to. And will I still listen to Chicago lovey-dovey music today? For sure. Do I like 80s power ballads? I love them. I know lots of people hate them, but I love them. But I think it's because of this. And it was one of the few bands that my parents could actually agree upon that they liked together, maybe, is how I would say it. So that for me is where I started with Chicago Peter Cetera style.
I love that, right? Because I've said this before that, when we talk about music and whatever, it's one thing to talk about it's a good record because of this, that, and the other thing. For me, I love hearing more about why people connect with music.
Yeah.
I love hearing the stories. My most favorite story I ever remember was Glenn Calloway telling me how and he said it before on one of the live streams ages ago, how he stole a record from Eaton's when he was a kid and he got busted. And, like stories like that are fantastic. Or I can relate to that, Daryl, what you said with Chicago. Not Chicago's, but, being, as you said, in 1985, I'm 7 years old, right? So I'm not really listening to music, but I'm in the car with mom and dad. And it's different if dad's in the car or mom's in the car because their tastes were different. But, whether I like it or not, hearing, some of that stuff I heard on, top 40 radio back then, it still takes me back. And suddenly I don't think that I'm getting close to 50, so it's good. That's what I like about it. So, yeah. Power ballads are made for chicks, or they're made for dancing with chicks, whatever. Let's see here. Chris is saying, let's be honest, when it comes to Queen, the greatest hits does that. Would that surprise you in the slightest? No. But you know what? Queen's greatest hits, both of them, are bloody excellent.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? I could be perfectly content listening to Queen's greatest hits, but I also love the albums too. It just depends. Am I in a deep cut mood or am I in I just want to hear the hits mood? And with Queen, it could be either or. So,
well, I was going to say, like, the first time I heard that jazz album was when I rated that radio station, because I'm like yourself, the greatest hits was all, but that Mustafa song that it starts off with is so weird, but it's so good, and it's like, where did this even come from? This is so weird compared to the rest of the album, but it's a cool song.
Yep. So Chris is asking me to mention, and since Chris is tuning in live, I'll talk about it for half a second. I'm a huge Adam Baldwin fan, and now Chris is a huge Adam Baldwin fan. And yes, Adam Baldwin is in the studio making a new album. He was recording it in Montreal last month, I believe. I've heard a couple of the new songs. He did one of them when I saw him live, and then there's a couple others that you can find on YouTube. And from I think the 3 songs I've heard so far, Chris, it's going to be like a Concertos and Serenades Part 2, which I'm perfectly okay with. Absolutely. Very excited. No idea when it's coming. I don't think it's finished yet, but we'll see. Let's see here. Douglas is saying in 1986, I discovered Easter House, and the song put out was Whistling in the Dark, and bought it on cassette and loved the rest of it. That's always fun, too, when you hear one song and you buy the album and then you fall in love with the album. That could be a topic one week, songs you bought. We may have done that years ago. I don't remember, but I've done it. I bought an album because of one song and ended up liking the whole thing.
That is why the first CD I ever bought was Ace of Base's The Sign, because I liked one of the songs on it.
Was it The Sign?
It was The Sign. Yeah, I think so. Or no, it was All That She Wants.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I remember that song. Yeah. All right. I guess it's my turn here. Let's do this. Okay. When I think 80s, so I started to get into music. My dad, I've talked about, was a massive music fan, big record collection, and some of this is his, and I've talked about all that. So there's always music playing in my house, but I was sort of indifferent to it. I'm just like, Dad's playing music, whatever. And then in the early, hey, look who's here. Rob Walker's here. Thanks, man. Well, thanks for joining us. I remember sort of like early 90s, like 93, I guess I might have been, 15. So when I started getting into music for various reasons. And, the first band I sort of discovered on my own was Oasis. I don't mention that just because Rob's here, but that's the point of my narrative where this is relevant. And I was dating this girl at the time, and she was a big U2 fan. And that was kind of the first 80s music that I listened to. And the first thing that she gave me was a mixtape back in the day of what she felt were U2's best songs up to, I guess, because Octung Baby was out by that point. So, the best songs up to and including what was on Octung Baby. And I played the living daylights out of that cassette until there was nothing left of it. And I remember, I think the first U2 CD that I bought was Joshua Tree, I think, because Where the Streets of No Name was and still is my favorite song. And then I just fell in love with Rattle and Hum. But I'm going to show 2 U2 records. I'm going to show this one first. On that mixtape, she had included Sunday Bloody Sunday, and she specifically included the Live Under a Blood Red Sky version because, in her words, it is vastly superior, and she's right. The version of Sunday Bloody Sunday that's on here is better than the album version. Mm-hmm. And so I love this. I wish that this wasn't a mini album I wish this was like the full damn thing.
Please, somewhere.
It's got to be in the vault, right? I mean, if
it
has to be. So I love this. So, I mean, there's other great things on here too. The version of 40 that's on here is really good. So there's that. And another early U2 album that I like them all, let's be honest. But Another one that I really liked from the 80s was Unforgettable Fire. I mean, it's so good. So good. I mean, you've got stuff like Pride in the Name of Love. I mean, wow, what a song. I think one of the first U2 songs that I really ever connected with was Bad. What an incredible song. So
100%.
for me, there's so much. I mean, Richard and I could talk probably for 2 hours just about U2. And we should one of these days.
I know. We keep saying we're going to.
Yeah, we should. But it all comes back to that mixtape that my girlfriend made me. And some of the standouts were 40 and the live version of Sunday Bloody Sunday. So that was my intro to this kind of stuff was U2. So
right on.
See, look at this. We're putting Chris Mann to sleep. So that's good. Sweet dreams, sir. Don't dream about us because that would be creepy.
Yeah.
All right. So for those just tuning in, we're talking 80s tonight, and not just 80s in general, but 80s music that sort of was foundational for us, or sort of helped kind of define our musical journey, if that makes any sense. So to that end, we'll go back to Richard.
I'm up. Okay, so I wanted to specifically talk about this album for a lot of reasons, and there are stories and there are experiences, but it is this month. Actually, yesterday was the 40th anniversary of the release of this album, and it's Van Halen's 5150 album. This is my OG from back in the day, and it's in very nice condition, and I plan to keep it that way. Yeah, this album holds a lot for me for a lot of reasons. I came out of the 70s as a fan of both Van Halen, Roth era, and Sammy Hagar from Montrose into his solo career. Followed him. I saw him. I might talk about that later if we get time for it. But when Sammy Hagar, they announced that Sammy Hagar was joining Van Halen as the replacement for David Lee Roth, I was beyond excited to see what this would be. And this exceeded expectations for me on almost every level. Not only this became Van Halen's first #1 album in the US. So I think it went over a storm. I know it's a very divisive thing about, Roth versus Hagar. But for me, Hagar kind of brought Van Halen to kind of a new level that, how do I say it nicely, beyond the childish kind of, there were some childish songs that Van Halen did in the first few albums. Let's just face it. Some of them were just raunchy. This stuff was a little off color, if you will. But anyway, this comes out. I go ballistic. Came out in 86. In 1987, I saw Van Halen for the first time with Sammy Hagar fronting. And I'm just like, fantastic show. Went to Minneapolis and saw the show. I'm trying to remember if we stayed over that night or if we actually drove home. Knowing us and the crowd that I hung out with at the time, we probably drove home that night and went to school the next day because we're crazy. And we lived like 6 hours away. So, yeah, Van Halen's 5150. I am a Van Hagar fan, but I appreciate the Roth era too, because to me, they're two very different and important eras in Van Halen history. But yeah, what I love about this is when I go in here and I look at what goodies might be inside, is I found an article from the Minneapolis Star Tribune of reviewing the concert that I saw on, does it have the date? Probably not. I know I have the ticket. They were like $15 for tickets to see Van Halen. Yeah, we set up in the nosebleed section, but who cares?
Very cool. Very cool. Love it.
Sometimes the nosebleeds is all you need.
That's true. If you're in the building, I'm happy sometimes.
Yep, agreed. Okay, Daryl.
What? I've got that Van Halen. I don't know if is there multiple different covers for that Van Halen one? I think so, eh?
Not for 5150. That was pretty much the standard one.
Yeah.
And OU 812 came out after that one.
Trying to figure out if that's 5150. I don't want to grab it. All right. Okay, so this one here, I try not to get emotional when I talk about this. I've talked about this story before, but I think for me, this next, I wouldn't say album, it's a particular song that's on the album. This for me is my first memory of music in general, whether it's hearing a song, watching a music video, whatever that might be, and I guess it combines the two. So obviously the early years of MTV and all that kind of stuff. I mean, my dad was all over that, like USA for Africa. I remember that, but the one music video that I remember previous to that, I think I've talked about this. Me and my brother sitting on the couch in our pajamas before bedtime. I think it was. It seemed like that anyway. And this came on.
Nice.
But it not Keep on Loving You, though. It's not on this, but I Can't Fight This Feeling was the one that I remember.
Oh, yeah.
And the music video, like when that music video comes on, even to this day, it's just because it's for me ingrained in the back of my mind. It's the first music video and almost the first memory I have, period, in my life is that. So it's kind of ironic that we're talking about 80s music and that kind of thing. But for me, these 80s soft pop bands, soft rock bands, whatever you might want to call them, I mean, I still listen to this stuff now to this day, right? So would I say that I'm a huge fan of REO Speedwagon? For sure. Do I like those 80s soft rock bands? I've got tons of them in my collection. And I would argue that it stems maybe from that memory. I mean, there's just a scene in that music video, I Can't Fight This Feeling Anymore, where the little boy is sitting there, and then there's the floating stuffed animal that I remember, and then the teenage boy. It's almost like that progression through youth. And yeah, for me, I guess as an influence on my musical taste, I would say REO Speedwagon is up there because it's as strange as it sounds. It's the first musical memory that I have growing up as a kid.
No, that's not strange
We'll
at
go with that.
all. I mean, that's
Yeah.
not strange. That's, I'm not gonna say I grew up with REO, but before that album came out, I was into REO Speedwagon for a couple of other songs, and definitely that live album that came out in the mid 70s, which is so good. And people, oh, geez, they're a cheesy band. Listen to early REO rocked pretty damn hard. Kind of like bands like Cheap Trick. Their first couple of albums are hard hitting, and then they kind of eased into slightly sappier music, if you will. But it doesn't take anything against them.
Yeah. You're on mute, Rob.
Sorry, I was giving my kid crap because he wasn't listening to mom say it's time to get ready for bed. So I was saying I don't mind some REO Speedwagon. I don't have any, but I should. I don't care that it's sappy, whatever. Good stuff. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I think what it is for me is it's legitimately the first possible memory I have ever is sitting on the couch with my brother watching that music video. So, nice. I mean, I couldn't not show it.
Yeah, that's cool, though.
Well, yeah. Alex is tuning in. How you doing, buddy? Thanks for watching.
Alex.
All right, my turn. I think. Okay, so I think the next sort of foray into '80s music that I remember um, starts in the '70s because I remember and I don't remember how, but for some reason I stumbled upon Fleetwood Mac. And like most people, I stumbled across Rumors first. Mid 70s, early 70s, I don't know, mid 70s, I think when it came out. Dad was a big Fleetwood Mac fan, but Peter Green. But as I listened to Rumors, 487 times, in the first month that I discovered it, Dad said, there's a lot more to it than this. There's this blues stuff and there's this other stuff. And so I started listening to some of the later, 80s Fleetwood Mac and discovered, and I don't know that a lot of people talk about these, but some of those later albums are just as goddamn good. Tango in the Night from 1987. This is an absolutely stellar record. I mean, you've got some great songs in here like Big Love, Seven Wonders, Everywhere.
I'm never putting my headset off again.
Who's talking? Do you hear that?
Yeah, I know who it is.
Oh, okay. I was like, is there something on my end? Anyway, so a great Fleetwood Mac 80s record. Not all, amazing songs, but, I very enjoyable. I guess for me, it was like, oh, so there's more than just Rumors. So,
Right.
And to this day, I mean, I have all kinds of Fleetwood Mac. I have the Peter Green stuff. I have the post Peter Green, before Lindsay and Stevie era, and then I have, this lineup, and I have almost everything, and I love every iteration of this band. I don't even think of it as a band. It's more like a ever evolving musical collective is kind of how I think of it. And, the music evolves. And this is just kind of one of the examples that, made me go much deeper into their catalog, which I often do with bands that, really appeal to me. Nothing wrong with owning greatest hits like our friend Chris does. I've owned a lot of greatest hits too. But I also really like, if there's a band where there's an album I really like, let's dive in and see what else there is. Because I actually find that I end up loving the, sort of the deep cuts almost better than the hits. So this is kind of the first example of how I, dove in and liked what was in the water, I guess you could say. There you go.
I think for me, I don't have any Fleetwood Mac, but I think that if I were to get Fleetwood Mac, it's the 80s stuff that I actually remember. Like you said, Seven Wonders and Everywhere was on the radio all the time.
Well, and that's a good point too, right? Because, and I've said this before, the radio station in my town was an oldies station, so 50s, 60s, 70s, and today is what they said they played. And so I remember every morning having that radio station on as I'm having breakfast, getting ready for school. And I heard those songs and had no idea that was Fleetwood Mac. Because it's just on in the background. I don't really give a crap. It's on the radio. I'm 10 years old. Who gives a shit? But later, as I got into Fleetwood Mac, I'm like, oh, I remember that like every morning on the radio as I'm eating my Cheerios. So, yeah. So, all right.
You gotta love this 50s and 60s oldie stuff. I know we're talking 80s, but those are some pretty good radio stations.
I love a lot of that old 50s and 60s stuff. I mean, that's what I grew up on, right? So, yeah. I don't have a lot of 50s and 60s records, though.
I don't either. I have a few. Well, I have a lot of Elvis, but
You and me both.
I've been finding that they're harder and harder to find in decent condition. That's the bigger problem.
True.
You're not going to find good 60s and 50s and 60s albums at Value Village. We'll put it that way.
At least you got a good OG Richie Valens now,
That is true. That is true. I do.
which is a good record. So, all right, back to you, Richard.
Sure thing. So, you talking about Fleetwood Mac and kind of coming into them, not really in the middle of their catalog, which you kind of did, but I look at. I'll talk about this album in a minute, but I wonder about how difficult it is for up and coming kids, our age when we were in the 1980-ish. How hard it is now for people to get into records and music in general, where and what their starting point is, and some of these artists, like, wow, can you imagine discovering Bob Dylan now and going, oh my God, this guy has like 50 billion albums out. Bad example, but
No, I know what
anyway.
I being sarcastic, but I get what you mean. Yes.
Right. Yeah, I know. Cheese grater aside, but so for this album, I got into this band around the mid 70s, and on the strength of friends of mine, it's like, have you heard this band? Like, who the hell are they? Play a song. Holy crap, that's great. And kind of stuck in my brain. And then, in the late 70s, I started buying their catalog and go back. But this band in particular changed a lot in the 80s. And I'm talking about Rush.
Oh.
And how Rush were, the big prog rock band with the big, huge songs, and the guy who sang weird, and the drummer, not drummer from hell, but you know what I mean. And then they kind of went a little bit more synthy and expanded their sound into different directions. And despite that, this is the album. I mean, I got into them right around just before Moving Pictures came out, and I played the living crap out of Moving Pictures. I love that album, and I still do. This is the one that came out just after Moving Pictures, and I wasn't disappointed with it because it hit complexity, complex music in a very different way. So songs like Subdivisions, love Subdivisions. I love New World Man. I was telling Alex the other day, that's one of my karaoke songs, man. And it is. Chemistry, Analog Kid, Countdown. It it was a different type of Rush, but I know this stuff, this era of Rush alienated a lot of Rush fans from the 70s that wanted 2112 again and more moving pictures type stuff. And then they went more keyboards and effects and whatnot. I love this stuff. Hold Your Fire album, all the albums that came out after this. I lost Rush for a while in the 90s when I was getting my career going. So I got my master's in 89, and then I started, and I lost track of kind of the late 80s, early 90s, like Counterparts and Presto and all of those. And I rediscovered those later and like, whoa, those are really good too. So yeah, I never saw Rush live until the Test for Echo tour. I saw them twice on that, but then I saw every single tour Rush did from Test for Echo all the way to the very end. And I'm glad I did. Because 3 hours plus 3+ hours of Rush in a live setting playing. I feel like I've heard almost every song from that Rush ever did live, because they changed their set list every tour with great effect. They pulled deep tracks out of it too. So yeah, forming my appreciation of Rush over time. I'm one of those people, I'll give you a chance, but if you really go off the deep end and change your sound to something, I've seen that happen with some bands that I've liked that were very edgy post-punk, and now they're doing electronica, and I'm going, I'm not interested in that, and I haven't bought their albums. But to me, Rush held it together throughout.
Are you going to go? Are they coming anywhere near you on the new announced tour?
They are. Tickets are just stupidly expensive, and I'm kind of waiting to closer to the day to see if like people sell their tickets off or something, I might end up going. I don't know what to expect, what this tour is going to be like. I know the last couple of times I saw Rush, Getty's voice, and he was really having to throw his voice to hit the highs sometimes, and it wasn't cringy or anything because visually they're a spectacular band just to watch because of everything going on. But I don't know what to expect yet, so we'll see.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Mhm.
All right.
I like Scott. I can't get into Getty's voice. I love Neil Peart as a drummer. He's fantastic. But I think it's the Getty factor. And I mean, I really should own Moving Pictures in 2112. I mean, that type of music is my jam. But it's kind of like it would be kind of like putting the band there and and then throwing Bob Dylan as the lead singer, right? It's just
That's torture.
yeah. But I can tolerate Rush though. Like I like Geddy Lee, especially when he's working with Bob and Doug McKenzie and just that funny stuff, right? So yeah. He also reminds me of somebody who I'm not going to name on a live stream, but just reminds me of somebody specific. We could talk about it later though. All right. Well, I think I might have to just dig into this. So I'm going to assume that we're not keeping score tonight because these bands are probably going to show up. So why do I like Glass Tiger so much? Would be the big question. And what it boils down to is this album here, The Thin Red Line, has Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone, which is the only song that Glass Tiger did that became a top 40 hit on the billboards in the United States and whatnot. But most of their hits were all over Canadian radio. Like these guys, Blue Rodeo, Bryan Adams, who may or may not show up later, but they were all over the airwaves in Canada. And it's whether you were driving in your car, whether you were trying to make a mixtape of your own, record, pause kind of thing, that kind of thing. So that really, Don't Forget You When I'm Gone is the only song that I really knew. And then when I was in grade 9, there was a family that they were, so I grew up in a gold mining town for about 20 years. And the manager of the mine, his wife was actually a good friend with my mom. And one day she was like, "Hey, could Daryl babysit our youngest son?" So I went there and for whatever reason, I had bought their greatest hits, which was called Airplay or Airtime. Can't remember what it was. I had bought it on a whim, and I went over there to babysit this kid, and I was just playing the CD, and all of Glass Tiger's hits were on it. And from that point on, it was just game over for me. It was, there's more to Glass Tiger than Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone. And I think on this album, I think Someday is on here. Thin Red Line. Like, if you haven't heard Thin Red Line, it's bar none one of their best songs, I think. Yeah, Someday is on here. Vanishing Tribe is a really good song. So that's just on this one. And then, of course, they recorded a couple other ones. One that followed is Diamond Sun. Diamond Sun's a great song. Bryan Adams shows up on their music. Rod Stewart is in one of their songs. Yeah, I mean, I just there's just something about them, and they have that East Coast feel because Alan Frew is born and raised in Scotland. Yep. And I noticed that they put out, I think, a couple of just small singles. There's one they did recently called Song. I think it's called Canada's Song, if I remember right. Really good stuff. I think it's really good. And then their most recent album's called 33. And I found out recently why they named it 33. It's called 33 because it was released 33 years after the Simple Mission album. So they went 33 years without releasing an album. So Yeah, I'm still searching. That's a great song too. So that pretty much shaped me in my Canadian music, I think, is that's it was played all the time along with a few other bands that may come up here in the show. So
Well, to that end,
Yep.
we couldn't get away from hearing Glass Tiger, Blue Rodeo, Corey Hart. Well, Glass Tiger's been mentioned, and I can promise you Blue Rodeo's coming up soon. Not yet, but soon.
I had come this close to bringing Corey Hart as well. I almost grabbed it.
Nothing wrong with wearing your sunglasses at night. Was Corey Hart a thing in the States, Richard? Did that even?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I would say for at least his first couple of albums were pretty big. But then, like Glass Tiger, that first album did really decently well. All those songs you named, I knew most of them. But then I thought that Glass Tiger was a one-hit wonder that kind of vanished from the face of the earth, and they've been recording since forever.
And still touring.
So, yeah.
They hosted their New Year's Eve extravaganza 20 minutes away from my house this New Year's.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I thought about Daryl, but I don't like Glass Tiger.
I could have gone. I would have gone, but I couldn't. I
would have gone.
Actually, you know what? Seeing how the weather was, I wouldn't have been able to make it there anyway.
Yeah. I wouldn't have gone by myself, but if you were here, Daryl, I would have gone with you. All right. So, as I mentioned, I discovered 80s music when I was 13, 14, 15, which was, early 90s. And I watched a lot of Much Music, which is like our MTV. It would not be uncommon, like on a summer holiday, for me to put that on when mom and dad left in the morning to go to work, and I'd still be watching it when they got home. Like, that's not. If I wasn't out mountain biking, I was home watching Much Music, literally. So, influenced a lot by those music videos back in the day. And one of those bands that the music video is what hooked me, a little band called Aerosmith. There's a big sort of, 70s Aerosmith is the only good Aerosmith. There's a lot of that in the vinyl community. That's fine, whatever. I like that stuff too. But late 80s, early 90s Aerosmith was my Aerosmith because that's what I grew up. So this is Permanent Vacation from 1987. This is kind of where I kind of got on board with this because, one of my favorite Aerosmith songs, Ragdoll, is on here. Dude Looks Like a Lady. There's some great hits, and I remember those videos. And, the follow-up to that was an even bigger smash from 1989, Pump. What an incredible record. Again, the Aerosmith purists were like, it's shit, it's for the MTV. So what? Who cares? Janie's Got a Gun, What It Takes, Fine, Love in an Elevator. I love everything on this. So that's, was sort of my introduction to Aerosmith. And then from the early 90s, the album after this, Get a Grip, with, Crying and Crazy and all that stuff. So this was kind of my first foray into like the 80s rock was late 80s Aerosmith. So
Pump has one of the most iconic covers of all time. I mean, they're almost like roadster transport trucks on there. It's amazing.
Yeah. I have a picture disc of this as well. Yeah. Did I ever tell you my Janie's Got a Gun, Brad Whitford Telecaster story? All right. I like Fender Telecasters. As you can see, there are 7 of them behind me. Well, you can see some of them, but I have 7 of them. And I do play them all. I love Telecasters. And I would say probably 15 years ago, maybe a little bit, about 15 years ago, I was not shopping, but I was just guitar browsing on eBay. And one of Brad Whitford's Telecasters was for sale because he had sold off a bunch of gear a few years before that. So this had all the documentation, all the paperwork, the serial numbers, the authenticity certificates, and everything. And it was an 83 Telecaster that he had used to record Janie's Got a Gun. And I thought, I'd like to buy that because I like Telecasters and I like Aerosmith. And this was used on Janie's Got a Gun. And I thought about it. I thought about it. And I thought about it. And instead, I bought this butterscotch Telecaster, which you can never see because it's behind me. This is a 1978 Telecaster. I bought that one instead, which I love. That is my go-to guitar. It's the one that I play the most. But there are other 78 Telecasters out there. There's only one Telecaster that Brad Woodford played on Janie's Got a Gun, and it would have been a cool piece of memorabilia. And so while I don't regret buying the one that's back there, I do regret not buying that Brad Whitford Telecaster. And so my wife and I were at Rock and Roll Hall of Fame 10 years ago, and there was a little like Aerosmith exhibit, and I'm standing there looking at it. My wife was looking at something else, and she comes up behind me and just whispers in my ear, I know someone who could have bought Brad Whitford's Telecaster. Thanks, dear. Like I don't kick myself often enough. So there you go.
Ouch.
Record on saying for us too cheap for much music on cable, we had Toronto Rocks on City TV and video hits. I forgot about that. Yes. I forgot about those. I watched those too. Yeah. All right. Back to you, Richard.
All righty. Well, you were talking about Much Music and MTV, and I kind of want to piggyback off of that because you can't ignore the impact of what MTV did as far as the popularity of a lot of artists, groups, whatever, some which came out of the blue, others who may not have ever gotten known had it not been for MTV. But I might do like a 3 for here.
Go for it.
I think I will. So I'm thinking of bands that would I have bought them had I not seen them on MTV? And I got 3 perfect examples. Okay, here we go. So first of all, this is a performance artist. Her biggest song was kind of a very, very old school, simple, but artsy video. It was Laurie Anderson and Oh Superman. If you've never seen this video, look it up. I'm sure it's on YouTube. It is haunting and fascinating. And I've been a Laurie Anderson fan since this came out. And this is my OG from, when did this come out? 81, I want to say. Is it on the bottom? Of course it's not. 82. So, yeah. And so artists like Laurie Anderson, would they have gotten popular had it just been a single release without the video component to draw people in? I would probably not have heard that. Another one is the number of UK artists that I got into because of MTV and 120 Minutes and some of the later night ones where they showed up and coming artists. I probably would not have discovered Adam and Ants. And this is Kings of the Wild Frontier with Ant Music and Dog Eat Dog. And this was huge in England. And I'm not going to say it was just kind of a blip on the screen in the United States. It did pretty well, and Adam Ant popularity, increased over time. But if I had not seen a video for Ant Music, I would have been like, what the heck? So, yeah, I have quite a lot of stuff from Adam and Ants. Last, this one became a long-term love affair for bands that I follow and collect massive. And the video for She Sells Sanctuary by The Cult.
Mm-hmm.
It's still my favorite album from the Cult, just from watching that video, hearing that song, and that did make it to the radio quite, a lot in the 80s. But I love this album. I love that song. But yeah, the power that MTV had, the strength of putting visual to music, sales, popularity, and my interest. It introduced me to a lot of stuff I probably would never have gotten exposed to living in the Upper Midwest. Because some of that we had album-oriented stations, but they were still playing Journey and REO Speedwagon and all that stuff. Nothing wrong with that, but where am I going to hear She Sells Sanctuary? We didn't have college radio station in my hometown. They probably somewhere, but I wasn't hearing, the likes of, obscure REM songs or whatever. So there you go.
I like it. I mean, that's the important point, right? I mean, the music video generation. You can't understate the significance that music videos played in the exposure of music, right? I mean, kids are more apt to watch television than they are listening to a radio.
Yeah,
true.
Guilty as charged, right?
I don't know. I don't want to do the whole like Debbie Downer on today's music videos and stuff like that. But I find a lot of today's stuff is like, you look at like the Nicki Minaj video, it's almost like it's just for shock factor. Like what can we do that's the shock factor? Whereas the 80s kind of had, there was a budget for it and you had to be creative with it, even if it was cheesy or whatever that might be. And speaking of cheesy, that's going to be a segue into my thing. But yeah, at the end of the day, I don't know. I find that a lot of what today's music videos are is just that shock factor. And let's see if we can get this to be X-rated. Not that I have a problem with X-rated. It's just there's a time and a place, maybe.
I'm not going there.
The difference between like now and how music is marketed, or the lack thereof, I should say too. The popular stuff has a budget and has a video and has a team and it's studio. It has a studio and it's almost like making a movie. Where other up and coming artists, the Adam and the Ants of this age, have to rely on Spotify, maybe getting hits, or a YouTube video that they put out and made in their living room or whatever to get recognized. I can't imagine being, the frustration of a lot of up and coming bands, or even established bands that are trying to make a living in this day and age. They can't get recognized, and it's kind of sad.
Grasshopper TV says Superman video is creepy and so cool. I haven't seen it, so I'm not familiar with it. I'll check it out later. My intro into music is music videos and the interviews on the New Music with J.D. Roberts and Jeannie Becker. Oh yeah, I remember that show. I used to watch that all the time. Absolutely. Douglas is saying in the 80s, I only had a ghetto blaster and only played cassettes, and later bought a stereo system. Yeah, I had a boombox, I guess is what we're supposed to call them nowadays. When I was just getting it, so early 90s, I guess, till I got my first stereo. So yeah. Duran Duran had Girls on Film as one of the first X-rated videos that I can remember.
I remember that one.
I don't remember that one. Well, the song, I don't know. I don't remember the video. I maybe would if I saw it. Okay, Daryl.
All right, Rob, I apologize for doing this because I know that you're going to agree with me. But I know that Richard's just going to shake his head on this one, and you might lose some viewers or you might gain some comments. We'll see. Because maybe it's because you and I were kids when this video came out, or the videos. And so we were like, this is a cool video. Hey, you got Richard who's going, oh, this is the worst thing ever. But for me,
Yes.
We Built This City.
Yes.
I love
Had a
that song.
huge
I love
impact on
singing
me.
that.
I don't know. It's just one of those music videos that I thought was cool. I thought Starship was cool. At the time, I thought Grace Slick was cool and the band was cool. I knew nothing of Surrealistic Pillow. I'd never even heard, White Rabbit or anything like that. This was my Jefferson Airplane or Star, whatever you want to call it. There's this one, and then of course there was the No Protection album as well. So I would argue that this was kind of my gateway into just liking cheesy music videos and cheesy songs to the point where I think when I talk about you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to bring this next one up as well. So I'm going to go to a Canadian. It's the total opposite of this, but maybe this is kind of a gateway to why I like maybe Primus or something like that. Is just, I'm not saying that this guy's comparable, but he had some weird, quirky music. Was Kim Mitchell, right? Patio Lanterns. Like, I lived in a small town, and Patio Lanterns was one of those small town, small radio songs, right? So you got your Kim Mitchell with Patio Lanterns, and what else is on here? I can't even remember now. Oh, Easy to Tame is on here. That's a good one too. But then of course you have like the Akimbo logo. I mean, who names their album Akimbo logo? And maybe it's just the quirkiness of this album that kind of got me on the road to that kind of stuff, right? Go for Soda, All We Are, Rock and Roll Duty, all of those songs are not. That's not on here, but yeah. And then of course there he is with his skullet, right? So yeah, I like the cheesy music videos. I like the cheesy songs. Obviously, we cannot compare Starship to Kim Mitchell, but it leads me into that path of Primus and groups like that, just based on their weirdness factor.
I like it. I like it. I like it. I love, and I still do love We Built This Here.
I think that maybe what it is that little kids watching MTV thought it was such a cool video. The effects were super cool, and the teenagers and the mid-20ers and the adults are going, oh, this is not Jefferson Airplane. That's what they're going,
For me, it was a Jefferson Starship, and that was my entry point, with the middle of Jefferson Starship. And then when they went to Starship, that song was on the radio so much that it just got to be overkill. But I appreciate that song. I like singing that song because it's really hard to sing, and I like a challenge. But my gosh,
I remember watching that video at some point in time, and I knew White Rabbit because my dad had Surrealistic Pillow and was a Grace Slick fan. And he said to me, just as I'm watching it, and he's, I don't know, sitting there reading the newspaper or whatever, kind of looks up and he goes, that used to be Jefferson Airplane, eh? And I go, what? And I'm like, if he hadn't told, because obviously this is, 10 or 15 years before the internet or whatever, right? So I wouldn't have known. So, yep. Good one, Daryl. I'm with you on that. Okay, this guy has to come up, and perennial favorite artist of the channel. Let's be honest. Canadian content. I became a big fan of Bryan Adams. There you go. I could have shown Reckless, of course. I think the first thing I remember of Bryan Adams is Summer of '69. Everyone will remember that was Joe's favorite song all the time. So,
okay, there you go. There's a thumbnail right there.
There we go. We got the trifecta.
Just practically a whole digital catalog.
There you go. This is Cuts Like a Knife from 1983, his third album, I know, Richard, we've talked about, you don't see the first album in the States, the one that's kind of blue and purple, the self-titled one. It's good. I like it. But anyway, Reckless and this, I sort of kind of discovered them both at the same time. And, I wasn't sophisticated enough in my music knowledge, and one would argue I'm probably still not. But I wasn't sophisticated enough in my musical knowledge to know like whether this was, this is sort of base level, it's nothing sophisticated about what Bryan Adams did. It just, 3 or 4 chord guitar rock, but to someone who was 15, it sounded great. And you sing to it, you dance to it, and he was a Canadian guy, and it's, hey, good stuff. So, I loved this stuff, and I think the first Bryan Adams I actually bought was in the early 90s. I had So Far So Good, which was his greatest hits up to that point. And I loved Waking Up the Neighbors. And so I was a big Bryan Adams fan. And I'm still a big Bryan Adams fan, even though that's not cool, because let's face it, I have never been cool and I'm never going to be cool. And that's all right. But, his prime is still the 80s stuff. The stuff he's coming out with now, it's okay. But the 90s stuff was good. The 80s stuff was good. Now, whatever. But I have everything, so I might as well keep having everything. But anyway, so for me, the early stuff, this had obviously Cuts Like a Knife, Straight from the Heart. I'm Ready, Take Me Back. This Time, some good stuff on here. So, Bryan Adams. Yes. His first 12-inch was a disco song. It was called "Let Me Take You Dancing." I think is what it was called. I know that's the only Bryan Adams I don't have. So there we have it. All right, let's go back to Richard then.
Sure thing. And I'll talk about this for a second. Is that I got into Bryan Adams on the strength of Cuts Like a Knife, and what's the other one? Reckless, thank you. And I was like, let's keep going. I know this album flopped massively in the United States, but
here too.
Okay, but there's good stuff on here. I mean, Heat of the Night's a great song. Into the Fire is a great song. Remembrance Day's on this. I mean, there's good stuff. I don't know what happened, but they just kind of went. And
I think it's one of those that Reckless was such an enormous success. How do you follow that?
Yeah. And I think I talked about this album when I was doing my A's of Vintage Vinyl Revisited. And reading about what he went through to make this album, put this together with that pressure, I felt sorry for him.
Yeah.
But so kind of continuing with the MTV thing and influential bands that came out of the UK that absolutely turned me upside down musically. Keeping in mind, all through like the 70s and into the 80s, I was into a lot of different genres of music, and I still am. But 80s became very synth poppy, but then there were sounds coming out of England that resonated with me very, very powerfully. And the Smiths changed the way I appreciated music. Morrissey's lyrics with the literateness of the lyrics he was writing, Johnny Marr's guitars, the band as a whole, and the sound that they were making just threw me for a loop. How good every single song I had ever heard by the Smiths leading up to this album coming out. In the Meat is Murder album, they had already had an album out in the UK that hardly anybody in America even knew about. The Meat is Murder dropped, and How Soon Is Now exploded. And so the Smiths kind of became one of those bands that I stuck with like glue, because it just spoke to me in my early 20s, I think I was, when this came out. And even to this day, even despite what a douchebag Morrissey can be, the guy still does good music. And I bought the new album, and it is really good. It surprised even me. And I'm not a completist with Morrissey by any means, but I am definitely, as much as I could be, a completist of the Smiths as I can be. So these are the ones that I picked up when they first came out, and kept them all. And Louder Than Bombs, I thought Louder Than Bombs was a new album because none of that stuff had been released in the States, but it came out around the time that Queen is Dead came out, and I'm like, whoa, what is this? These are great new Smith songs. No, they were old Smith songs. But did I care? Hell no.
Nope.
So to get four back to back really strong albums from one artist, and then they fell apart. Yeah, that was probably one of the first examples of a time when a band broke up, and I was like, no. So, the Smiths.
All right. Take it away, Daryl. I'll be back in 20 seconds. I got to go say goodnight to my son. So take it away.
Okay, so I guess this might be the two bands that may have at least started my influence of listening to more heavier bands. So I'm not talking about like Ministry and industrial and stuff. I'm just talking about like metal music in general. I think what it is that these two bands were played on the airwaves on MTV and stuff like that, as opposed to, say, your Iron Maidens and stuff like that, which was, I don't want to call it a niche thing, because it's not. I mean, they're well-known band and stuff like that, but even stuff like AC/DC and Kiss and stuff like that, my parents never listened to that. But my dad, for whatever reason, listened to these two groups, or at least the popular songs by them. And I never really realized it, especially with the second band, that when you're listening to bands like Tool and stuff in the 90s, and you're going, because they've got some, especially with Undertow and things like that, there's some really hard, aggressive topics and lyrics that come with that, the explicit lyrics thing that's in the corner and stuff like that. And really, at the end of the day, some of this would not have come about, and my appreciation for it, without Quiet Riot, Come On, Feel the Noise and stuff like that. It was just, it's metal music. And of course, at the time, I didn't even realize that was a cover song. I thought Quiet Riot invented the stuff, right? But I mean, you've got Quiet Riot, and you've got the whole like Jason looking thing going on here, the horror scene and stuff like that. But the one that I remember more, and we talked about this, I'd say a couple of months ago, when we were talking about music videos that we remember, and Twisted Sister comes there too. I watched Pee-wee's Big Adventure so many times, and they're playing, Burnin' Hell on the Car, which is on here. But the big thing for me, like I said, is I didn't know at the time, until I researched it later on, obviously in the 2000s. I didn't know that if it wasn't for Twisted Sister standing up to Congress going, basically, fuck you, we're not telling kids to go out and fight and break things and all that kind of stuff, that I may never have got to listen to Tool and Ministry and stuff like that. They might have been censored to the point that it never would have happened. So my musical journey and my appreciation for metal music literally stems from those two bands, because without them and without what they did in front of Congress, Metallica doesn't really, I mean, they exist, but they don't really exist. Alice in Chains, those grunge bands, I mean, maybe they would have put out a big stink and a protest, but I think that they heavily influenced not just me, but many, many people going into the late 80s and 90s with metal music, for sure.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Ryan, tuning in from Tokyo. Welcome, my
Hey.
friend. Has anyone watched the CFNY doc, The Spirit of Radio? I haven't, but I know it's out there. I just haven't got around to it yet. Ryan says, shout out to the 80s thrash band from Guelph, Razor. Yeah, I remember those fellas. Did you mention them previously, Daryl, or did that just come up in the comments?
No, I've never even heard of Razor.
Oh, okay. All right. I didn't know if I missed that one.
We were talking about metal music and how Quiet Riot and Twisted Sister influenced maybe my journey into Tool and stuff like that.
Gotcha. I remember Razor because I know a little bit about Guelph, Ontario. So, how about the Killer Dwarves? I don't know the Killer Dwarves. All right. Okay. I'm going to do I think this is a threefer, but they're all related, so it makes sense. And I'm kind of going to segue from Bryan Adams, which I talked about before, kind of introduced me to the concept of can rock, which was a thing in the late 80s, early 90s. There was a sort of Canadian rock renaissance, if you will. There was a surge in popularity of bands from Canada that were doing that electric guitar rock kind of thing. So I have several, not several, but I'm a nerd for Canadian music. So this is kind of the thing that made me go, holy shit, there's a whole lot of this Canadian music that isn't necessarily known outside of Canada, and that's still kind of my thing to this day. But I mean, the guy that kind of first, other than Bryan Adams, was this fella here, Tom Cochrane, of the band Red Rider. This is Tom Cochrane and Red Rider from 1986. I mean, this was kind of the first guy that I went, oh shit! I mean, I really dig that. I like that. I can, sort of relate to it, I suppose. This has Boy Inside the Man, Untouchable one. I think those were the two big ones on here. Just an outstanding album. The guy became one of my heroes. I met him. I won't tell the story, but it was an incredible experience. As kind of an honorable mention, if we're talking about Tom Cochrane, this is hard to find, but if you can find the symphony sessions that Red Rider did with the the Edmonton Symphony Orchestra, this is just incredible. So from Tom Cochrane to another guy, Richard and I were talking about him a little bit the other night. I discovered this guy, Barney Bentall and the Legendary Hearts. Again, the same kind of thing. And Richard said, I gave him a song to check out. He goes, that reminds me of Mellencamp. And he goes, yeah, it does. And it's that same kind of thing. So there's a great song in here called Something to Live For. Great. Legendary Hearts had a few albums. Barney's still going today, sometimes with the Legendary Hearts, sometimes with another band he's got. I know his son. Just great can rock. And then, of course, we know where this is leading. Since Daryl talked about Glass Tiger previously, all of that led me to discover Blue Rodeo. Richard has seen Gary Newman a bazillion times. I've seen Blue Rodeo a bazillion times. 54 times, to be honest. This was the band that was just kind of like, this is my band. This is my band. I'm all in with everything they do. I get everything. They're a band from Toronto. They write about the Canadian experience. That's that kind of roots rock kind of thing. Everything about this I connected with. This is their second album called Diamond Mine, which is outstanding. I don't show it a lot. I usually show Outskirts, their first album, but this band literally is the soundtrack to my life. I've got more stories about these guys than I could possibly share, and they mark so many important milestones in my life. And I've met them. I've been on their guest list for shows. I've been backstage. They welcomed my son when he was born. They sent us a video. One of them has been to my house many times. I've interviewed another one of them on my channel. This band is everything to me, and this was sort of the culmination of me discovering that sort of can rock renaissance or explosion of the late 80s, early 90s. So that's from 1989, I believe, or 88. So there you go.
I love your personal connection to Blue Rodeo because you always have, a story, a happening. I've met Gary Newman a few times. Yeah, that's nice. You have personal connections where it's like, they
Well,
said stuff. It was
I
born.
think the
It's like,
difference is, they're a local band for me, right? Like they're from Toronto, which is 45 minutes away from where I live. And they're not rock stars. They're very well-known Canadian musicians, but they're not rock stars. You can meet them most times if you wanted to. Like, it's not like they're famous people you got to get away from. Like when I wanted to do an interview with Glenn, the drummer, which that video's up on my channel. He and I are friends on Facebook. We've met a few times. And I just sent him a message. Hey, man, you want to do an interview? And he's like, yep, absolutely. So they're not rock stars, right? And so because they're local, I see them all the time, right? So they used to play this. There's a town called Stratford, Ontario, which is about an hour that way. They used to play a January show every single year there for like 20 years. And I went to that show every single year because it's not out of my way. They play in Kitchener, Ontario once or twice a year at a place called Center in the Square. That's 20 minutes away from me. I go there all the time. Like, it's very easy for me to see them. And, because I, have been to so many concerts and met them a bunch of times. And then, my buddy Bob, we became friends because he lives in the next town over and opened up a guitar store, and we became good friends. So yeah, it's cool, right? Because in one hand, they're this band where these songs are important things in my life. But on the other hand, Bob comes and sits at my kitchen table and has a coffee, or I hang out with him on his porch on a Saturday morning. So it's a weird kind of juxtaposition, right? Like I see them when they got inducted into the Canadian Music Hall of Fame, and I'm like, yeah, I was hanging out with them last week. It's a weird kind of thing, but to me, they're almost two separate things. But it is kind of cool, and I've got a ridiculous amount of memorabilia here that is just absurd. But yeah, it's they mean more to me than just a normal band. Not necessarily because of that, but just because the music's important. I blabber. So I'll shut up. All right, we've still got lots of time, so we'll go around again.
Sweet. So if Grateful Dead fans that follow them everywhere are Deadheads, what are you as a Blue Rodeo fan? What do you a rodeo-y? I don't know.
They actually have a name for those people, and they're actually called, I didn't make up the name, they're called Crazies.
Oh, well. There was the 1997 Gary Newman tour. I did go to multiple East Coast tours because it was his first tour in the United States since like 80 something. And there was a little group of us that we called ourselves the Crazies because Newman had a song called The Crazies. So we were that little ragtag group that went up and down the East Coast. I saw him 5 times in like a month or something. It was great. Okay.
Nice.
This round, I want to talk about bands I discovered because of things like MTV, 120 Minutes, whatnot, that As a record collector and music aficionado, there are some bands that I became completist of, or damn near, like the Smiths, for example. And others, there were a couple of songs that registered, and it's like I have a couple of albums, and that's all I need. And that's kind of what this is. So the first one being Culture Club. And I love Culture Club. There's maybe 5 or 6 songs I like by Culture Club, and that's all I need. So, Karmic Chameleon, love that song. I think I have maybe 2 Culture Club albums, and that's fine. But Sawboy George, who was he touring with? B-52s, I think. That was about 10 years ago. Good show. But yeah. Another band I absolutely love, Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark, and I discovered them very early in the game. Particularly when Architecture and Morality got big, with the song Joan of Arc, which is a masterpiece of synth pop. And then I quickly backtracked and found out they had a couple albums before this. Followed them for Dazzle Ships, came out after this, and it was the album that kind of alienated their fan base because it was artsy, like way out there. But I loved it. But then they got big commercial airplay with their Junk Culture album and the Crush album, I think, and my interest just went straight down the tubes. And because they were doing it was like we talked about earlier, when a band changes their sound so much that it's either too slick. That's what happened for me with them. They got too slick, and I wasn't as interested. But I know they're they're still around. They're still cranking out albums. But yeah, OMD. So I have a few albums from them. How about this blast from the past? Bow Wow Wow.
Holy shit!
I Candy
Wow.
was huge. Yeah, but I love the band. And interesting, like these were like all of Adam and the Ants' original lineup. Malcolm McLaren came along, swiped them from Adam Ant, and he had to kind of reform his band because McLaren put Bow Wow Wow together with Annabella Lewin. So go figure. But this is not a huge album, but it's Do You Want to Hold Me was a huge song off of this, but for a week, and then they kind of disappeared. I've had 2 opportunities to see Annabella, doing Bow Wow Wow, canceled both times, and I was like, so that's a little angering. This is a blast from the past that actually had a following, and I know Daryl loves this band because the lead singer has crazy ass hair.
Yeah. I have that album. That's a good album.
It's a great album, and
Yeah.
they put out a couple of really good albums, and then they just kind of, again, they just got a little bit too weird or too weepy or too slick and commercial. Yeah, Telecommunications on here, Space Age Love Song. I love this stuff. But then Wishing was a little bit more MTV friendly, and yeah, the hair. Hello. I don't know what that was all about, but yeah, so bands that I got exposed to in the 80s that kind of expanded my palette of different genres and types of music from all over the world that I may not have ever heard about had it not been for MTV and college radio too. So
Yep, very good. Just a couple comments here. Grasshopper TV saying Blue Rodeo made Queen Street West all start wearing bow ties and cowboy shirts. Then years later, the Sadies who did the side. Yeah, big Sadies fan. I met them a bunch of times too. Glenn is the punk rocker. Yeah, if you watch the interview I did with Glenn, we talk about sort of his punk rock roots and some of the harder stuff he does, like stuff he does with Ian Blurton right now. So, yeah. Okay, Daryl.
Well, speaking of punk rock, this is anything but. And I know that if Rob sees this in the wild, he's going to buy it no matter what.
Okay.
This is a cheat. This is a 1990 album.
Oh, I know what it is.
1990. but I have to bring this up because the Canadian artist that has some similarities to this, maybe with reggae and rapish type music, would be Snow, 12 Inches of Snow, which I bought a cassette tape. That was the first cassette I ever bought in my life, was 12 Inches of Snow. I bought it at Eaton Center in Toronto. I had to rebuy it because being on a grade 8 trip coming from a small town of 1,000 people, I thought, oh, I can just leave my bag on the table while I go get my food at the food court. So it got stolen. So I had to buy 12 Inches of Snow twice, which is funny. But previous to liking 12 Inches of Snow, this guy was everywhere. And for the longest time, I could sing every song that was on here. I memorized all the lyrics. I thought he was the coolest guy until I heard his name was Robert Van Winkle or whatever. I think that's why he went by Vanilla Ice.
His first name's pretty good.
You know, what's that?
His first name's pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. But I don't know what it is. There's just something about this album. I'm not a huge rap guy, but I mean, I like some rap music. Maybe that's where this kind of comes from. It was also obviously my first introduction to sampling, right? Ice Ice Baby using the samples. But I think the funniest memory I have about this album is when I was in elementary school, my brother had a cassette tape of this. I don't know where he got it from, but he had a cassette. And he asked the bus driver if the bus driver could play it. Well, beknownst to us, the bus driver was a Baptist minister.
Oh.
And when the song Hooked came on, or no, it was Life is a Fantasy, which is a porn song if you've ever heard one. The bus driver, I thought, was going to have a stroke. My brother, he took it out of the cassette player, didn't give it back to my brother, ran it into the principal at the school. We went to a Catholic elementary school. It's just such a memory that I have. That was like, I'm not saying that I was like, we were, rebelling, but it was kind of one of those situations where maybe I just had a family where my parents didn't really care. Like, I've talked about that story when my dad was like, oh, Cypress Hill, explicit lyrics, don't tell your mother, that kind of thing, right? And so I think that a guy like this was just right up my alley. And seeing him and his MC Hammer would fall into this with the hammer pants and all that. I thought that the way that they were dressed was the coolest thing, and my mom was like, no. So
your mom was
just
right.
Kind of goes with that. What's that?
And your mom was right. Good one. Yeah, that's on my. I've never seen that in the wild, but damn it, when I do, I'm buying it. All right. Both of you gentlemen are a fan of this particular guy. So I came to this very late, like I'm talking in my 40s, shamefully. The first time I heard this. One of those, like, I will always remember where I was. It's, kind of like lightning struck, right? So this had a lot of similarities to other stuff that I listened to, the singer-songwriter kind of stuff. Now, I knew, it's not like I didn't know who the hell Bruce Springsteen is. I didn't live under a rock. Like, I knew Hungry Heart and Dancing in the Dark. Like, I knew the hits, but I'm like, I don't give a shit. Whatever, right? So, but I heard this one. Oh, wow, this is more to this than I thought. So there's that, but that's kind of an outlier, I think, in terms of his catalog, right? It's very much different. So, I mean, then the logical place that I'm like, well, let's listen to this because it was a monster. And I don't know that I ever talked to them, but I like this album. You know, I mean, Born in the USA is great. Darlington County, I love. Downbound Train, I'm on Fire. Glory Days, Dancing in the Dark. I like pretty much everything on here. I think it's a very, very good record from 1984. And it sounds like 1984, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And, you know, then I went into stuff, you know, his earlier stuff, you know, Asbury Park and Darkness on the Edge of Town, Born, all good. All good. And then I discovered this. And I know Daryl likes this one too quite a bit.
Yeah.
I love this record. I think it's fantastic.
Side 2 to that record is perfect.
What's that?
Side 2 is perfect. There's not a bad song on side 2.
Agreed. Brilliant Disguise, I think, is brilliant. And I love Tougher Than the Rest from the first. I love everything about this as well. There's just some absolutely incredible 80s Springsteen. There's some incredible 70s Springsteen too. And there's some incredible later Springsteen as well. But, you know, I like that Nebraska, Born in the USA, Tunnel of Love, those 3 albums in a row, just aces in my opinion.
What's the one that has like Streets of Philadelphia and stuff and Secret Garden? That's early 90s, but it's hard to find, I think, on vinyl.
I can't remember.
Or are they 2 separate albums?
I didn't think Streets of Philadelphia was even on an album. That was a soundtrack.
Maybe it's just a soundtrack, eh? But what's the one with Secret Garden then?
I think it is.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think there's
his early 90s, like following up Tunnel of Love, like the
so after
90s.
that there was Human Touch and what's the other one? They're similar covers because they were released on the same day. Oh, I like those albums too. Yeah.
You know what? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Secret Garden is also because Secret Garden and Streets of Philadelphia. There was a greatest hits album on CD I had.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, and it had all those songs on it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I'm thinking they're on an album, but
I think so because I think Streets of other than being on Greatest Hits, I think Streets of Philadelphia was just the soundtrack.
Maybe
I think so. Yeah. Remember though.
I could be wrong, but so yeah, Bruce, gotta love him. All right, we got time for one more round each. We got like 10 minutes, so let's kind of do like the speed round to bring this thing home. So
speed round, okay,
sure.
Well, I'll just go with what I was going to show because it works. This is a threefer, if you will. So in the 80s, there were groups that I knew about going into the 80s that released albums that became my favorite or really high in the list of favorite albums by that band or by that person that were released in the 80s. So I will start off with, and you inspired this with Springsteen, Tom Petty, and Southern accents. And I'm pretty sure this is Sam St. John's favorite Petty album or high on the list. I was a huge fan of Petty with Damn the Torpedoes, and I swore up and down that Damn the Torpedoes was the best Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers album ever. And then this thing came out. And is there a bad song on here? I don't think so. Rebels, You Ain't Nothing to Me, Don't Come Around Here No More. Yeah, Make It Better. I like it all. So this quickly became my favorite of theirs. This came out in 85, so mid-80s. Another band that surprised me, and I was starting to go off of this band, and I was a huge fan all the way through most of the 70s. I discovered them in 77 when Love Gun came out. In the 80s, Kiss did Creatures of the Night, and this is stomping good Kiss album. Creatures of the Night, Saint and Sinner, I Love It Loud brought me into this album. War Machine. Who wrote War Machine? Everybody say it with me.
Brian Adams.
Brian Adams. Go figure. Co-wrote it, but I think he probably did write it. So yeah, last of the makeup era Kiss, at least for a while, and one of my favorite Kiss albums. I was a John Cougar fan leading up to this album, and he changed his sound because he was going for a little bit more of a heartland, you know, Midwestern, more singer-songwriter mode type of, gritty. Yeah, because this was in the agricultural crisis era of the 80s. And yeah, Scarecrow is by far my favorite John Cougar album. Minute by Minute, Scarecrow's fantastic. Minutes to Memories, Small Town was huge off of this one. So that became my favorite Cougar. Some of his later stuff isn't bad. He's just kind of, I don't know, an odd duck and gotten old and grumpy. There you go. And a lot of people I know that like this band like the folkier stuff. But for me, the Waterboys never did a better album than This Is the Sea. I absolutely love this because it's just the imagery is huge, it's bombastic. But I like Fisherman's Blues and I like some of their later stuff too. For me, this was just such a big and ambitious album. Don't Bang the Drum, my God, what a song. So yeah. So the 80s brought a lot of my very favorite artist catalog. I could add REM's Document to that list too. End of the World as We Know It, and Finest Work songs on here, and a bunch of others, but awesome. So thank you, 80s, for feeding me wonderful music.
Well done. Well done. All right, Daryl.
All right, so got about 5 or 6 here. So I'm going to start off with, it's no secret, I like soundtracks. And I think the reason I like soundtracks is I always thought that 80s soundtracks had some of the coolest music.
Grease 2.
And what's that?
Grease 2.
Grease 2. But I think two of the, I guess, soundtrack defining moments for me. This is one of the greatest movies of all time. Never Ending Story. Yes. I think it's got one of the coolest soundtracks. It takes me to a place in my life that was just, and I'm going to end with an album that just takes me to a place in my life where I just felt free. You know what I'm saying? Like just free. And yeah, a little bit of traumatic moments in this movie, like his horse, getting lost in the mud, and, tragic, but it's a cool movie. And you can't go wrong with a flying dragon that talks. It's awesome. And of course, Lamal had, he did the song. He's got his own album, which is not bad. But the album that I would say defines music for me in general, because it's 60s, 70s, 80s. Whether you like the movie or not, you can't deny this soundtrack. You can't deny the soundtrack. Hungry Eyes. Hey, it's even got Hey Baby, Bruce Channel, so the 60s stuff, Be My Baby, the Ronettes. So it's a good 80s soundtrack. Even if you don't like Bill Medley and Jennifer Warnes, I've had the time of my life, but there's some good memories of that. Good memories. So soundtracks. Now we're gonna pick it up go from soundtracks to KTEL quality compilations. This one comes to mind because my parents had this on cassette. When I went on my grade 8 Toronto trip, my dad said, you can take this cassette with you to listen to on the plane and on the bus. And I listened to it nonstop the entire trip. And this has some, what's on this? Mr. Starships on here, The Dream Academy, Aha, 1 to 1, Mike and the Mechanics. They're all on here. That's a great, what's this called? Hit Energy, 1986. So that one's good.
Never seen that one.
speaking of moments in my life that I remember distinctly on TV, we talked about USA for Africa. I couldn't not talk about Tears Are Not Enough and Northern Lights. I know that a lot of people are like, oh, it's the worst one of the three. For me, this was everywhere on Canadian radio, and it is stacked with Canadian just hit musicians. So that kind of does it.
Who led that project, Daryl?
Oh, you mean Bryan Adams?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I got 4 more to show. Paul Carrick, Mike and the Mechanics. I don't know. I love Paul Carrick, whether it's with Ace, whether it's with him as a solo project, or whether he's with Mike and the Mechanics. In the Living Years is a defining moment for me, not only because of what the song is about, but I remember the video. Not that this is a positive thing, but I think that what this did and the Beaches soundtrack and the Beaches movie is it exposed me to what death would be, I guess you would say. I know that's kind of morbid, but at the same time, it gave me an understanding of it. So kind of a moment in my life there. And then we got 2 more. Crowded House, that's a good one. Can't go wrong with them. And then this is the one that I was talking about. Makes me feel free every time I listen to it. Steve Winwood's Back in the High Life. That song to me defines what the 80s was for me as a kid growing up, playing on the front lawn, listening to music, living life freely as a kid. And so, yeah, had to show that one. That's it.
All right.
I thought you were going to show this.
That's a stellar soundtrack. Very good soundtrack. All right, Sam, your timing couldn't be better. No, I did not show Robbie Robertson, but we're going to show, as I wrap this up here, you might have heard of this guy, Sam. So the first time, obviously I didn't hear this when it came out because I would have been like, I don't know, 10 years old or whatever. First time I remember Tom Petty was when his greatest hits came out, and the new song on there was Mary Jane's Last Dance. And I went, whoa. So for some reason, the first Tom Petty record that I ended up with or heard or whatever was Full Moon Fever from 1989. And it is outstanding. I mean, you've got Free Fall and I Won't Back Down, Running Down a Dream. My favorite is Zombie Zoo. I love this. And so from here, I dove into Tom Petty. And then my dad said, well, if you like that, you're going to love Traveling Wilburys, which is, the superest of supergroups. So this came out in 1988, so the year before Full Moon Fever, and I loved this. And I love Volume 3 as well. Unfortunately, Roy's not on it.
That's a good one.
Outstanding. So from there, I got into Tom Petty. I don't have near enough. I got a bunch, but not nearly enough. And I just love Tom Petty. Some other honorable mentions from the 80s that I loved. Bon Jovi. Of course, everyone probably picks Slippery When Wet, which is a monster one. But they had some other incredible 80s albums too, like New Jersey, which came out in, I think, 88. And it has Lay Your Hands on Me, Bad Medicine, Born to Be My Baby, I'll Be There for You. Just a friggin' great record. So love Bon Jovi. And in that same hair band thing, Def Leppard was wicked. And I mean, they had many albums, obviously, but the commercialist of them all is Stereo, same with Pyromania. So love some Def Leppard. And I'm going to end this with my fantasy wife, Susanna Hoffs from the Bengals. They basically had 3 albums. The one everyone knows, if you know the Bengals, is In a Different Light, is it has Walk Like an Egyptian and Manic Monday. But I like all of them. So this is their first album called All Over the Place. Some great songs in here. Hero Takes a Fall, Live, James. Yeah, so that's good. And then their last album before they broke up, Everything, which has In Your Room. Oh man. Woo. Enough of that.
Calm down, Rob.
I know. Well, if you know the lyrics to that song and Susanna Hoff singing it, you'll understand why I go, woo, hot dog. So that's the 80s, and those are sort of the albums that kind of did it for us, I guess, right? That kind of started to chart our musical path and, were sort of formative for us. So that was a great deal of fun. I will do as we always do, kind of go around the horn. And anything going on in your channel, Richard, you want folks to know about?
I am continuing my Vintage Vinyl Revisited series. I just finished listening to, I think I'm on J now. I finished the J's. I'm going to do that video. I'm doing a couple of thread videos for Midge's Vinyl Gems, celebrating his 1-year anniversary with album covers with hats is the theme. And beyond that, who knows? So that's pretty much what's going on right now.
There you go. Daryl put out a new video. Was it today, Daryl? The album covers that don't match?
I think it was yesterday, but yeah, the album covers that don't match. That one's for Brian on Bureautic Robot. I thought that was fun. I probably could have come up with at least 5 or 6 more. I think the album covers that match is going to be the harder one for me, because I'm looking through my albums and I'm going, do any of these actually match?
Fair enough.
Like you showed the Unforgettable Fire earlier, and I'm looking at that album cover going, there's no fire on there.
No.
I don't think.
No.
Like, they're so easy to find the ones that don't match.
Right.
And Richard, was it you that mentioned this, or was it Mark Morris in the comment section, that it's almost as if a lot of these bands came up with album covers. They had an initial idea in mind, and then their label probably went, no, you're going to change it. And then it's some shitty label that doesn't make, or album cover that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like,
I have to
like this one right here. Like this one right here. Bon Jovi, Slippery When Wet, deemed a little too controversial. So the label said, you may not use this. So they only put it out in Japan. So literally, they took a black, hefty garbage bag, sprayed it with water, and John wrote with his finger, Slippery When Wet, and that's the album cover.
Yeah.
Bull crap.
Yeah, so that was fun. Just a matter of time. I don't know. It's not easy to make videos anymore. I just seem to be busy all the time. So
I'm with you. I haven't made a video in almost 2.5 months. Sam, if you're still watching, your Americana tag is on this very computer. It is half edited. I've just been so bloody busy, and I kind of got a little bit of YouTube burnout. I just, work is so stressful right now that making videos and staring at my computer screen feels too much like work. So, I don't know when I'll get back to doing it regularly, but I do owe Sam an Americana tag, and it's almost done. I'm not purposely procrastinating, Sam. I just, life happens. So, And there we have it, gentlemen. That was a lot of fun. Thank you, Richard, for joining us. That was good. Tim will be back next week. We'll figure out something to talk about next week. Not sure what, but for everyone that joined us tonight, thanks for tuning in. We love chatting with you. And for everyone that's going to watch us later, thanks for spending a couple hours with us. Daryl and Tim and I will be back next week. Thank you, Richard. Have a good night, everyone. We will see you next time.
We'll see you next week.
There you go.